Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Shelly of Letters by Shells, and today I'm going to be showing you all how to make these super quick DIY Valentine's Day edition cards. And I'm excited about this one because I feel that Valentine's Day cards, especially if you are making them yourselves, they add an extra element and they're just super unique because you cannot find them anywhere else. And the person you are gifting it to or giving it to, I'm sure they'll be super excited and feel extra special as well. So yeah, I'm super excited and let's get started. So before I start the tutorials, I want to make sure I quickly talk about the materials we're going to be using today. And as always, all the tools will be listed in the caption below. But the first thing is that I want to make sure I have my watercolor paper, some watercolor paints, a watercolor paintbrush, and some painter's tape, a cup of water for the watercolor paints, and different colors of brush pens, and lastly, a Ziploc bag. For the first Valentine's Day edition cards, we're just going to be using our paper, Ziploc bag, brush pens, water, and a paintbrush. So I'm going to go ahead and place my Ziploc bag on top of my watercolor paper and just grab my brush pens and just draw some swatches on top of the Ziploc bag. So my goal is to add different sections around it. So using one color and just drawing it on the top and then drawing another swatch on the bottom and just using different shades of color of the brush pens, swatching some in the middle section, on the top, and just around the edges. But the goal is to make sure that it's staying within the size of the paper. So that way when we are placing the Ziploc bag on top of the paper, it's not going to go onto your table. But after you are just okay with how you swatch the Ziploc bag and just a different variation of colors, the next step would be just grabbing your paintbrush and just dipping it into the water. And the goal is to basically paint on top of the watercolor paper. So I'm going to add swatches of water from the very top and just towards the bottom, and just make sure that the card itself is fully covered with a thin layer of water. And now I'm gonna grab my Ziploc bag and just gently place it on top of the watercolor paper, and you'll start to see that the colors are gonna start bleeding into the water and just mixing well together. So I feel like it just has a beautiful finish. It's like almost like a tie-dye effect. And if you notice that some sections need more water, just gently lift your Ziploc bag and just grab your paintbrush with water and just add more water in those sections. Smooth out the entire Ziploc bag so the colors can blend well together, and yeah, just kind of repeat that process until you are okay with how all the colors blended together. So now I'm going to go ahead, just gently remove the Ziploc bag and just wait for this piece to dry. But yeah, there you have it for that wash background. For this step, it's totally optional. You don't have to do it, but I'm going to be using a mono drawing pen, and I just want to write Happy Valentine's Day on top of the card just to add more balance to it and just to make it pop out a little bit. So I'm just going to write in all caps, Happy Valentine's Day. Valentine's, I'm writing it first, so that way I know it's centered right in the middle. And if you want, feel free to use a ruler or a guideline. I didn't use one, so that's why mine's not straight. And on top of the word Valentine's, I'm just going to go ahead and write the word happy on top of that. And underneath the word Valentine's, just going to write day. And I noticed that I wanted some more balance, so I went ahead and drew some lines next to the word happy in the beginning and at the very end, and same with the word day. But I also felt like something else was missing, so I ended up just drawing just a quick small heart underneath the word day. Hopefully that looks more balanced. But yeah, there you have it for the first card. It's just a quick wash background and just writing on top of it, Happy Valentine's Day. For the second card, we're just going to be using our watercolor paper again and watercolor paints and a paintbrush and some water. So the goal is to just draw a bunch of hearts on this card. So for the first heart that I'm painting, I'm going to be using a lot of pigment for this one. So I'm just going to use my paintbrush, dipping it directly into one of the colors. I'm using like a deep red color and just painting the first heart with just using the pigment only. For the second heart that I'm painting, I'm going to go ahead and now rinse my paintbrush in the water and just draw the second heart with water only. But the goal is to make this second heart almost like touch and kiss the first heart, so that way the color from the first heart can bleed and go into the second heart, as you can see here. And I also noticed that this was still too pigmented, so I went ahead and drew the third heart, again with just water only, and making sure that the third heart was also touching the second heart, so that way the colors can bleed into the third heart, and that way it creates more of like a kind of like an ombre effect. But basically the first heart is going to be really pigmented, second heart is, I know it's still pigmented, but maybe a little bit lighter, and the third heart being the lightest shade of red. So now for the fourth heart, I went ahead and used an orange color, and I wanted to make sure that it just had some nice balance to it. So again, using the same process, just painting it with a lot of pigment, and I made sure that each heart still kind of touches the other heart next to it, so that way the colors can blend together and mix together as well. So after you paint the first heart with the pigment, just go ahead, rinse your paintbrush again with water, and just draw the next heart with water only. And again, just making sure that they're touching a little bit with the previous heart. So I'm going to go ahead and now repeat this entire process for the second row of hearts, but now I'm going to be using almost like a peach yellowish color just to create more contrast from the first line, because I feel like the first line of hearts it was really dark and really just a bunch of like reds and oranges. So the second row is going to be a little bit different by starting off with a lighter shade of colors and then going back into the red and orange color again. So when you're doing this, just make sure that every heart is touching the previous heart in some ways, so that way the colors can blend more together, and it just kind of creates more of like a fun bleeding effect. So also going towards the bottom, you'll notice that I started to add more water to it because I wanted to have like the heart fade and just become lighter in colors. So from the very top set of row of hearts, you'll notice that it's really pigmented, and as you go towards the bottom, it just becomes lighter and lighter in color. So there you have it for the second Valentine's Day edition cards. So hopefully it just has like a fun just pattern of hearts and like different shades of colors. I feel like it's super fun, and it could be also used for any occasion. Now for the last and final card that we'll be painting together today, it's going to be a little bit different from the other ones, and now I'm going to be using painter's tape, and I'm going to apply the painter's tape at the very top, middle, and bottom section. So this areas that are exposed, we'll be painting on top of that, and then the areas that have the tape, that's where we're going to be writing our Valentine's Day message. So now just grabbing my paintbrush and with water, my goal is just to swatch a bunch of like water on top of the exposed areas. So I'm just gonna add a thin layer of water because the technique we're gonna be using is called wet on wet. So by applying the water first and now dipping my paintbrush into the pigments and really just like dabbing very gently in the areas that have the water. So I'm starting with the upper left-hand corner and then the bottom right-hand corner just to start there, and then rinse my paintbrush again and using another shade of color. So I just wanted to create more balance, and I decided to use a yellow shade for the second color and just kind of repeating the exact process, just starting with the corners. And I went ahead just repeated this process with different shades of colors from like orange and deep purple. And in the sections where I felt that it was just too much color in just one area, I went ahead and dipped my paintbrush into this like pastel like yellow color and just like dabbing it into those sections where I wanted it to have just more color in certain areas. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing I did for the first process of just painting with water only at the very bottom section over here, and just adding a thin layer of water from the entire section. And with this one, I went ahead and went with the same color theme that I used for the first example, but just putting it in different areas. So starting with the purple first, and then the yellow color, and then orange, and then just kind of repeating that exact same process till I reach the middle section. And lastly, I went ahead and added some red on like the top and bottom just to add more of a contrast. And just going back in and adding more yellow in the areas. So I added the color yellow again because I wanted to make sure that the red lines that I added, it just wasn't too harsh, and the yellow created more of like a softer edge. So once you're okay with it, we're gonna let this piece dry and then now carefully peel the paint off. So when I peel the paint, I normally start from left to right and just really carefully, because sometimes the paint can tear the entire paper. So just make sure that you're careful with this process. And if for some reason you are noticing that like the tape is peeling the paper, then go ahead and like start in the opposite direction. So if you're peeling from the left and it starts ripping, then just stop there and then peel from the right. So there you have it with the final product of like the painted areas. Now the last step would be just writing I love you. So I'm gonna sketch everything out with pencil first, and just kind of seeing how I wanted to do it. So the word love, I'm gonna write it in calligraphy, and the word I and you will just be in all caps. So for the word I and you, I'm gonna be using a mono drawing pen from Tombow and just outlining it, and also just making it a little bit thicker for your downstrokes. And now using a brush pen for the word love. And after the ink is fully dried, you should be able to erase the pencil mark, and it should be able to erase pretty easily. So a quick note that I wanted to do is that the reason why I used pencil for this last card was because when I wrote the phrase I love you, there was no paint or like wash background behind the lettering. So the reason why I mentioned that is because for the first card we initially did, I did not want to write it with pencil first or sketch anything out on top of it, because the fact that we had a whole like paint wash background. And usually what happens is if there is like a wash background already and you write pencil on top of it, it can be really hard to erase it. So that's the reason why the third card I wrote with pencil first, and then the first card I did not. So hopefully that answers any questions you may have why I used pencil for the last card. But there you have it. We made all 3 cards today, so hopefully you enjoyed the entire process on just seeing what that was like. And if you do recreate this, I would love to see it as well. So please tag me at Letters by Shells on Instagram if you post it there. And yeah, I just want to see what you're all able to create. So I hope you had a good time. Thank you so much for your love and support. And just a quick thing, if you want to learn my style of lettering, make sure to check the practice sheets below in the caption, and it'll just route you back to my Etsy shop that has different practice pages that I have for sale. But yeah, thank you so much again for everything, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!